Demi Moore, the secret she kept for nearly a decade. What if the most painful part of a divorce wasn't the cheating, but the moment you realized you had slowly stopped being yourself trying to prevent it? That's exactly what Demi Moore finally admitted after years of silence. When her marriage to Ashton Kutcher collapsed in 2011, the world saw the headlines. The cheating scandal, the younger man, the Hollywood heartbreak. But what the public never saw was the full story. The miscarriage, the relapse, the decision she made to save her marriage that ended up destroying her, and the years she spent nearly losing everything, including her 3 daughters. This is not just a story about a celebrity divorce. This is a story about a woman who spent most of her life searching for love in all the wrong places, because no one ever taught her what love was supposed to feel like in the first place. And it all starts long before Ashton Kutcher ever entered the picture. Demi Moore was born on November 11, 1962, in Roswell, New Mexico. Before she even took her first steps, her biological father had already walked out the door. She never knew him. Her mother remarried a man named Danny Gwines, and for the first 13 years of her life, Demi believed he was her real father, until the truth came crashing down and shattered that illusion entirely. The family moved constantly, 40 different schools, never settling anywhere long enough to feel safe, to make real friends, to understand what stability even meant. And if that wasn't enough, both of her parents were battling severe alcoholism. The fighting was constant, the chaos was normal. And at just 12 years old, Demi found herself pulling pills out of her mother's mouth after she attempted suicide. 12 years old. Think about that for a second. Then, at 15, came something even darker. In her memoir, she revealed that her own mother had allowed a man to sexually assault her in exchange for $500. $500. That wound didn't just leave a scar. It fundamentally changed how Demi saw herself, how she approached love, and how desperately she would cling to relationships that made her feel valued. At 16, she packed up and left, moved to Los Angeles, started modeling, collecting debts, doing whatever it took to survive. At 17, she married her first husband, rock musician Freddie Moore, mostly, by her own admission, because she was terrified of being alone. The marriage lasted 4 years, and in a jaw-dropping confession buried inside her memoir, she revealed that she had cheated on Freddie the very night before their wedding. Not out of cruelty, out of confusion, out of not knowing who she was or what she truly wanted. Her acting career, however, was starting to find its footing. At 19, she beat out over 1,000 other candidates for a role on General Hospital. But just as the doors began to open, addiction nearly slammed them shut. When director Joel Schumacher cast her in St. Elmo's Fire in 1985, he gave her one condition: get sober or lose the role. She chose sobriety. She chose herself. And that decision launched one of the most iconic careers in Hollywood history. Then came Ghost in 1990. $500 million at the box office. A Golden Globe nomination. That pottery scene. Demi Moore was no longer just an actress. She was a phenomenon. A Few Good Men. Indecent Proposal. G.I. Jane. She became the first woman in Hollywood to earn $12 million for a single film. She shaved her head on screen at a time when that was genuinely shocking. She was fearless, magnetic, unstoppable. But behind all of that, she was still the little girl who had never felt truly safe. In 1987, she met Bruce Willis at a movie premiere. They eloped to Las Vegas just months later. Together, they became one of Hollywood's golden couples, both at the peak of their fame, both headlining massive blockbusters, raising 3 daughters together: Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah. To everyone watching, they were the dream. But the reality was quieter and lonelier than anyone knew. Long separations, career pressures, the slow, invisible erosion that happens when 2 people stop truly seeing each other. In 1998, they separated. 2 years later, they officially divorced. What's remarkable, and genuinely touching, is that even after everything, Demi and Bruce remained close. They co-parented. They showed up for milestones. And even years later, when Bruce was diagnosed with dementia, Demi continued standing by him, supporting both him and his current wife. That's not bitterness, that's grace. But the divorce still left a deep hole. And into that hole walked a 25-year-old named Ashton Kutcher. They met in 2003 at a dinner party. She was 40, he was 25. The 15-year age gap had Hollywood buzzing immediately. But Demi later described that evening as unlike anything she'd experienced before. They talked all night. The age difference seemed to vanish completely. Right after that dinner, they stayed on the phone for 8 hours. 8 hours. Just talking. About life, about dreams, about what they both believed in. 3 weeks later, Ashton was meeting her daughters and her ex-husband. That's how fast things moved. And honestly, it worked. Ashton was warm, energetic, funny, and genuinely invested in becoming part of this ready-made family. He attended parent-teacher meetings. He learned how to French braid hair. He took parenting classes voluntarily. He gave each of Demi's daughters a Cartier bracelet at their wedding, as a promise to love them like his own. Bruce Willis reportedly cried at the ceremony. They bought a home in Idaho. They launched a production company together. They appeared on Saturday Night Live and laughed at their own age gap. Everything seemed genuinely, beautifully real. Now, here's where the story starts to shift. In 2006, Demi became pregnant. They had already chosen a name, Chaplain Ray. But at nearly 6 months along, the baby's heart stopped. That loss broke something inside her. They tried again. Fertility treatments, natural attempts, none of it worked. And the grief from that quietly began to build a wall between them. Here's what Demi then admitted in her memoir, and this is the part that hit hardest. After nearly 20 years of sobriety, she started drinking again. Not because she wanted to, but because she wanted to be the kind of wife she thought Ashton needed. She wrote that he didn't truly see alcoholism as a real disease, and she found herself trying to reshape who she was to fit the version of herself she believed he wanted. She drank to loosen up, to seem more fun, more easygoing, more young. And then she made a decision she would spend years regretting. To satisfy what she described as Ashton's desires, she agreed to participate in sexual encounters with a third person, not once, but twice. At the time, she convinced herself this was what a modern, open-minded wife looked like, that she was being accepting, flexible, secure. But looking back, she said it was the greatest mistake she made in that marriage, because it erased the boundaries that should have protected them both. And those missing boundaries would later be used against her in the worst possible way. The cheating started in 2010. Ashton brought a woman named Brittany Jones back to their shared home, while Demi was away in New York on a business trip. Their home, the place they had built together. And Demi didn't find out through a friend or a photograph. She found out through a Google Alert notification. A Google Alert. Then came 2011, their 6th wedding anniversary. A moment that should have been filled with celebration and reflection. Instead, a 22-year-old woman named Sarah Leal came forward, claiming she had spent the night with Ashton at a San Diego hotel. She said he told her he was separated. She said she had no idea what she was walking into. When Demi confronted Ashton about the affair, his response was the cruelest part of all. Instead of taking accountability, he pointed to the threesomes. He argued that because they had agreed to blur those lines before, his actions existed in some kind of gray area. That it wasn't really cheating in the traditional sense. Demi later said that response felt like a knife going straight through her. She had agreed to those encounters to prove her worth as a wife, to show she was exciting and trusting and devoted. And now that sacrifice was being weaponized against her, reframed as her own fault. 2 months after the scandal broke, she ended the marriage. She released a statement describing her decision as coming with great sadness and a heavy heart. What followed was a collapse that went far beyond heartbreak. Demi relapsed completely. alcohol, prescription painkillers, a dangerous cocktail of substances mixed with energy drinks. In January 2012, she had a seizure at her Los Angeles home and was rushed to the hospital. Her weight dropped to an alarming level. She became obsessed with her appearance, spending hours in front of mirrors, convinced she wasn't thin enough. She isolated herself almost entirely. And her daughters, Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah, watched helplessly as their mother disappeared into someone they barely recognized. Tallulah described living in constant fear, never knowing when the next emergency call would come. The emotional weight of it all contributed to her own struggles with an eating disorder. Scout felt abandoned. Rumor once had to call emergency services to save her mother's life. By 2012, all three daughters had cut off contact with Demi. They weren't even present at her 50th birthday. She missed Rumor's journey on Dancing with the Stars. Milestones she can never get back. But here's the turning point. In 2015, after completing her own treatment program, Tallulah, the youngest daughter, sent her mother a single text message. It was the first communication in nearly 3 years. Demi got on a plane immediately. That text message saved a family. The road back was not quick or clean. In 2019, all 4 women sat down together publicly for the first time to talk honestly about the pain. Tallulah said she had felt abandoned. Scout admitted she had carried deep resentment. Rumor confessed that even the thought of seeing her mother used to trigger panic attacks. And Demi didn't defend herself. She sat with it. She owned it. She said, "I hurt you, and I'm sorry," and she meant it. They went into family therapy together. They spent a week at a retreat in Arizona, meditating, crying, talking, healing. Slowly, the trust came back. Not all at once, but piece by piece. And today, they celebrate together. They show up for each other. For Demi's 60th birthday, all 3 daughters got the word "Mom" tattooed, in her handwriting, on their bodies. If that doesn't tell you everything about how far they've come, nothing will. Demi also chose to confront the one relationship she had never fully processed, her mother. Despite everything her mother had put her through, Demi was at her bedside in her final moments. She later described that experience as one of the most important lessons of her life. Forgiveness, she said, was never about excusing what happened. It was about freeing herself from the weight of carrying it. Today, Demi Moore is 63 years old, and she is thriving on her own terms. She served as a jury member at the 2026 Cannes Film Festival. She executive produced and narrated a documentary called Groundswell, focused on climate change, set for release on Prime Video. She starred in the critically discussed film The Substance, a film about society's obsession with youth and beauty, which feels almost poetic given everything she's lived through. She's also set to portray Gloria Steinem in the biographical film Love Lace. She's dating no one in particular, and for the first time in her life, she says she's completely at peace with that. She's not looking for someone to complete her. She's not trying to be someone's idea of perfect. She's not reshaping herself to fit into someone else's vision. She's just living, fully, freely, and on her own terms. So here's the question worth sitting with. Was the marriage between Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher always headed for failure? Was it the age gap, the trauma they both carried into it, or was it simply 2 people who needed to do their own healing before they could ever truly be good for each other? Drop your thoughts below, because this is genuinely one of those stories that doesn't have a clean, easy answer. And if this kind of deep dive storytelling is what you're here for, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell, because there are more stories just like this one coming your way. See you in the next one.